Spurs are second in total shots, second in XG behind Man City, second in shot creating action, second in possession, second in touches in the penalty area, passes completed second, progressive passes second, progressive carries second, carries into the penalty area third, crosses first, corners second behind Man City, tackles won second behind Man United, attacking third, tackles they are first, ball recoveries they are third behind Bournemouth and Palace. With all that said, me and Justin are going to go in depth and break down this game. We're going to take a look at Spurs on the tactical pad. We're going to take a look at some of the key numbers from Spurs this season. And we're also going to take a look at some of the still images of how well Spurs have been doing this season. We are going to also preview the game and talk in a Villa perspective. And we might predict the lineup. We'll see how we go. Justin, how are you?
Very good, mate. I don't want to play them now. You've said all that. But more importantly, they are 8th in the league. So there you go.
And they are 5 points behind Aston Villa with a possibility of going 8 points behind Aston Villa on Sunday. Up the Villa. Right then. So, Justin, big game, tough game, because Spurs are a very good team. They are coached really well. And when everything is going perfectly well, they are one of the best teams in the league for the way that they play, the way that they attack. I've reeled off all those numbers of how good they are in most of these metrics. They are behind Manchester City. And it just shows that they are a really good team. For whatever reason, the away form isn't quite as good, but the home form is very good. They've got really good players across the whole of the pitch. So, how are you feeling about Spurs this season, Justin? Where are they? Who are they competing with? How good are they? Let me know.
Yes, I think they're a good side. I think I tipped them to maybe break into the top 5 this season. And nothing I've seen at the moment makes me think they can't do that. I think their consistency is the big issue for them. They're a very good side. They're a work in progress side, and I think tactically, I think Postecoglou is decent. I don't think he's top level, but I think he's a good man manager. And I think he gets the best out of his players in that respect. I do think he's tactically decent, but I don't think he's in the Emery category, in my opinion, and the Guardiola, who I think are probably the 2 best tactical managers in the league. Having said that, he's created a really good side there. I like the back 4. I think the 2 centre halves are decent. They've got an array of players in the midfield that can do jobs for you, and players that are sort of coming back to form a bit more now. And they're blessed with some really good attacking players. Brennan Johnson's having a brilliant season. Maddison, Son. They took a big punt on Solanke. Has that worked? I'm not sure yet, but it's early days for him as well. So I've got a lot of threats and a lot of things for us to worry about, and I think it's a good test for Villa this Saturday. I think it's a good game for us to play, and it's time now we started playing against the sort of better sides of the league to see where we are. And importantly, this is game number 10, where I always think that's when you can have a real. I say this every season, like a broken record. 10 games in is where you can see where you're going to be roughly in the season.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said before you started, just that if we win, we go 8 points clear of them. Now, 8 points clear of Spurs after 10 games is absolutely huge, because the big thing about Villa, which I think is the different factor between Spurs and Villa, is that we are very, very consistent. And this season, they aren't quite there, Spurs, with their consistency, with losing to Brighton, with losing to Crystal Palace. We've just kept it ticking over. We keep the points tally ticking over. And I think we are a more consistent side than Spurs. And like I say, I think they're a really good team. But I do think if you take Spurs to a place that they don't want to go to, so you deviate them away from their free-flowing, dynamic, hybrid football, then you can pose them massive amounts of challenges. And I think that's something that I hope that Villa can do. We've beat Spurs with Unai Emery, and Postecoglou wasn't the manager the first time round. Second time last season, we managed to beat them away, but I don't think we played well that game. I think we were heavily under pressure. Son had the ball in the back of the net numerous times. And then the game at Villa Park, we also didn't play that well in the second half. So I think Emery v. Ange has sort of had the better hand over Emery. Spurs have played better, in my opinion, in both of those games. And I think whenever I think of a record like that, and I think of a manager that sort of gets the upper hand on Emery, there's a real sense of, I need to get the win now. What have I learned from the last two games that we can do better? Because I think when I look at Spurs, and we'll go into great detail on this in a second, is that they do things pretty repetitively. So they haven't played a long goal kick all season. So when you're trying to look an approach to a game, Unai Emery will be looking at this game thinking they don't go long. So that we know that we have to make sure that we press them when they're on their goal kicks. And that's what Crystal Palace did. So there are things and ways that Villa can really exploit this Spurs team. But I will say that I do think we've got to be pretty much bang at it to really get the victory in this game, because Spurs are coming off the back of a disappointing loss against Crystal Palace. They're really good at home. And like what you've said, 10 games in now, we're coming up against a team that's going to be competing with us. We have to put in a real good performance. So how do you think Emery will approach this game, Justin? Like, what do you think he's going to do to stifle Spurs?
I think away from home we've been really, really good this season as well. I think on our travels our style of play definitely lends itself to playing away. You know, we're not gung ho, are we? We retain the ball, we play out from the back, a bit like what Spurs do. And I think it's going to be a tactical balance of they're sort of playing us at our game, aren't they? You know, like you say, they don't play long, they play out from the back, they try and play through the lines. So I think, you know, high press, definitely. I think our wide players have got to be really, really on it. Ollie Watkins is probably the best striker in the league for sort of hunting down and running across the lines. The two midfielders are going to be really, really important. You know, where they sit, where they sort of their starting position is going to be very important, because that allows the defence to move up a bit more, which allows sort of the midfield three and behind Ollie Watkins, our attacking three players, to maybe press that little bit higher up, 5 yards up the pitch. But I think we've got to be very aware that if they do break through the lines, if they do play through the lines and they do get out from the back, we've got to be very switched on down the flanks. You know, they're very strong either side, aren't they? So I think fullbacks is very important. You know, will Ezri Konsa play to strengthen the back line a bit more? I think probably so on the right-hand side, if I had to guess right now. Luca Dean's been outstanding this season. You probably see Carlos come back in and pay. So the back four especially have got to be switched on the whole game, because if they do get the jump on us, if they do break through the lines and we've overcommitted in a press, we could be in big trouble. You know, they've got the players that can pick us apart. And Maddison, Assad, if he's fit. You know, they've got Kulusevski. They have got some very, very, very good players. So we've got to be, like you say, switched on. We've got to be at it from the off. We've got to be very, very focused the whole 90 minutes, because if you're not, they will pick you apart. But having said that, against Palace, they wasn't at it, and Palace managed to sort of counter what they were doing. So, you know, we all know who's going to have watched that game over and over and over and over again and picked holes in it. So he will look at what they did and implement a sort of a slight change, maybe not change to our style, but he will pick points and make individual players aware of where they could really, really hurt Spurs.
Yeah, I think when I think of Villa now, from watching Villa this season, I've got two different types of Aston Villa now in my head. And they are both as good, but they are both as vitally. Actually, I've probably got three. So what I'm trying to say is that European Aston Villa and Premier League Aston Villa And I sense with European Aston Villa, I feel we are very intense, but intense with our defensive shape, if that makes sense. Is this making sense what I'm saying?
No,
Because I get
I get what you're saying. I would say calmly intense, and I know that's a sort of counter each, but we're very calm in Europe. We don't panic, but we're intense in what we're trying to do. So they all know what they're going to do. They all know what they have to do, and they all do it very well. But there's no pressure, and they do it calmly. Pau brings the ball out calmly. He finds space calmly. The two midfielders. That's how I sort of feel it's evolving in Europe, and I think that lends itself to Europe because European teams, especially Italian sides like we found with Bologna, we might even find that with Juventus, is they slow the game down a bit more, and to a point, it's sort of how I perceive Tottenham to play out up till the first 2/3 of the pitch, and then they go a little bit, probably try and quicken the pace a little bit with their attacking players. So I think we've just got to be very switched on and alert, but calm and composed in possession.
Yeah, so I really want this Villa European defensive, no mistakes, calmly intense about us, but just very organized, disciplined, allow us to grow into this game, because that's what I think is going to have to happen. So we're going to take a little look at Spurs, and then we're going to go to the stats, and then we'll go to the images to back up everything that I've sort of found. So Spurs, how do they play? What are they? So they're basically a ball playing progressive team that are going to be playing out from the back. So they'll be playing out from the back. Like I mentioned earlier, there's no long goal kicks. So everything is going to be starting with the 2 players or 3 players and the keeper at the back. If anybody's watched the Palace game, they went man for man on Spurs and they pressed them, and Van der Ven, they come unstuck with that pressure. And I think that was something that Palace did really well against them. So Watkins, Rodgers, pressing is going to be vitally important. Last season, what we saw from them was a unique style of Udogie and Porro really bombing on and going into these central areas, these attacking third areas. But this season, we've seen something a little bit different from Spurs. It's still attacking, and you'll see Udogie going into these areas, and he'll be bombing on through here. He'll be inverting and allowing Son to go out, or Son will be going inside, and Udogie can offer the width. But based on the average positions, what we've seen is that Udogie and Porro are a little bit higher and just a little bit wider, so they're playing within those areas through there. Last season, you were seeing a midfield pivot-ish with Basuma, Bentancur, or Sarr and Basuma. But this season, what we're starting to see is more of Basuma in there on his own, and the new introduction of Kulusevski into that midfield position. And he's playing it really, really well, because it's allowing him to attack and exploit this space through here. And it's also allowing the interchange with Johnson and Porro as well. Maddison, a little bit deeper. He's working within these areas. And what you can see from Solanke at times as well is a little bit like the Harry Kane vibe of him dropping a bit deeper. And then you've got these attacking players that can get in front and go beyond Solanke as well. So, Justin, who in here do you worry the most about?
I think can you keep that up a sec? The front sort of 5 players, the real attacking players, do obviously worry me. Kulusevski, Son, Maddison, Brennan Johnson, who's had a really good season. That they're all really good attacking players. But what I think he's done by shifting this double pivot to a sort of single pivot, and he's almost saying to the fullbacks, right, both let's say, for example, let's take it that Constant started. So we like to attack down our left back would then become our attacking outlet, but the 3 then shift round to create a 3 at the back. What I think he's trying to sort of evolve Spurs into is the old-fashioned wing backs get forward, Basuma sits back in as a sort of supplementary central defender. So that makes that three in the middle there. But I think by doing that, I think you weaken your midfield a little bit, because if you're attacking your fullbacks quite high up the pitch, Johnson and Son obviously are very attacking anyway. There's a danger you can overcommit and leave a real gaping hole in the middle of the park. You know, as you say, Kulusevski's sort of evolving more into attacking midfield role. And I think we are very strong in the middle of the park. You know, McGinn sits in really well. Our double pivot's very, very good. Tielemans has been probably our best player this season. You know, Anana's been strong as an ox in there. You know, we've seen, you know, Morgan Rogers play really, really well getting forward. So I think players like Morgan Rogers could really, really thrive running through the middle, because if Kulusevski's getting forward, which is his natural game, Maddison loves to create and sit in that pocket. It leaves Basuma, who's also, you know, after having a really troubled first sort of spell at Spurs, he's started to settle into it. But he's having to do all that real legwork in Middle Park on his own. And if your fullbacks are overcommitting, I can see the likes of Rodgers and McGinn and players that are playing in, whoever else plays in behind Watkins, having a bit of space to really, really do some damage.
Justin, have you seen my next slides?
No.
Because what you can
I've done
see
my
here,
research. You told me to do my research.
What you can see here from the average positions and passing networks over the last 3 matches, here we can see beautifully what you've just described. You've got the Van der Ven Romero, you've got Basuma number 8, you've got 2 fullbacks going on, you've got a midfield of nobody inside the centre circle, you've got Kulusevski, Maddison, Johnson, we've got Solanke in those attacking areas. So you can really see the areas in which Villa should be able to exploit this Spurs side. We know that having played against some top teams now, and I'd say one of the biggest things that these teams shouldn't do, Spurs, Arsenal, Bayern Munich, is leave 2 defenders with everybody else pushing on, because Ollie Watkins could just exploit this perfectly time and time again. We've seen it against Arsenal, Bayern Munich. We've seen it against Man City when we play them, and he's just so good at doing it, and it just poses so many problems to the back line. So that's an area I think we'll get massive joy. Obviously, you've got those areas behind the fullbacks that like to go on as well. So those are target areas. But here we can see the top combination, so you can get a real picture, especially when you're looking at these numbers now, of where do Villa need to shut down. And it's blocking out those passing lanes between defenders, because we've got Romero to Van der Ven, 50, Van der Ven to Romero, 49, a dodgy left back to Van der Ven, 38, Romero to Porro, 38, Vicario to Romero, 38. So we haven't really got an attacking player for Spurs in the last 3 games having a network of over 26. So you're talking about Maddison passing to any other player. You're talking about Kulusevski. You're talking about Brennan Johnson. You're talking about Solanke. There's no network there. So just like what Palace did by stopping Spurs from playing out from the back, enables the ball that's not going to be allowed to go into those attacking players. Because if you can limit the ball into Maddison, Solanke, Johnson, you're halfway there to stopping Spurs from being as fluid as what they want to do. So it's vitally important that our press is perfect. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think what they're doing is relying on very good ball retention at the back. And so sort of trying to get a third of the way up the pitch. If you look at that centre circle, so they're just trying to get up to their half centre circle with the ball retention, allowing the fullbacks to get forward, allowing the 2 central midfielders to get forward to create almost a 5 up top. And then they're trying to then say to their attacking players, find good positions, because we will just keep the ball. We'll work our way up the pitch 10, 20 yards, and then we'll be relying on getting the ball into feet. and then they'll be looking them front five with the help of the two weak full-backs to swarm all over the defenders and swarm all over the opposition. And I think against weaker sides that aren't as good and haven't got as good players, I think it works really, really well. What I think they'll come up against with Villa is a side that can counter them, can sit back, can soak up all of that thing, not panic when they do have the ball and a lot of possession, and hurt them on our transition. If we can nick the ball off them in really high up areas, they think they're going to be in big trouble, because if they're relying on their players to keep the ball, move up the pitch, and then find that killer pass, and all of a sudden the Tielemans picks them off, and you've got Rodgers, McKinn, and Watkins in really good positions, all of a sudden with a 3 versus 3, they're going to be in trouble, aren't they? They're relying on their attackers sort of retaining the ball and getting the ball in high up areas. But I think if we can nick it off them, I think we've got a real good chance of which we did last year. I think did we go behind and won 2-1? Was that last year or the season before? Can't remember now. But anyway, I went to the game where we went 1 down, but then we really, really controlled the game and then went on to win the game. And I think we can hurt them. I really do.
Same, me too. So Earl's back off holiday. So shout out to Earl. He's done the graphics for this for us as well. So we're kind of painting a bit of a picture for you. And the picture is starting to become clearer and clearer of how we can possibly get something out of this game as well. And here we've got the passing areas now over the last 3 games. So what this is going to show is it visualizes areas of the pitch where high amounts of successful passes end. So we already know that Spurs are big playing out from the back. Those combinations with Van der Ven, Romero, Van der Ven, Udogie, Romero, etc., and Pedro Porro. So what you can see is that the left-hand side of the graph is going in the chart. He's going to show you those passes in that area. And then what it's going to show you is the areas in which other areas of damage are happening as well. So out wide, those passes are then going out wide. So you've got those creative players like Son in there. You've got Brennan Johnson. You've got Udogie that's getting into those attacking areas as well. So it aims to show whether the team targets specific areas of the pitch with their passing. So we know it's coming from the back and it's going out wide as well. So here we've got the areas of influence that show each specific player on where they're going within the football pitch. So Udogie on that left-hand side, Pedro Porro as well. He's going a little bit inside through there as well. We can see that Maddison, Kulusevski and Basuma. So Basuma is the one that's sitting. Maddison's getting into attacking areas on the left and Kulusevski's doing the same on the right-hand side. Solanke dropping deeper. Son is staying high and wide on that left, hugging that touchline and going into that 18-yard box. Brennan Johnson is doing the same as well. So here is a new graphic from Earl, which is absolutely brilliant. And it's high ball wins versus Ipswich away. So this visualization illustrates the team's effectiveness in winning the ball high up the pitch within the opponent's half. Green actions represent instances that led to a shot within 30 seconds of regaining possession, including only successful actions. So the little star is ball coverage, the X is tackles, and the triangle is interceptions. And this is all about something that Spurs really want to do. They want to win the ball high up the pitch, get those attacking players like Maddison on the ball quickly that can then cause and pose massive amounts of damage. We've got box passes over the last 3 matches, which is, I think this is nearly a league high. So it shows the amount of passes that are going into the box in the last 3 matches. So 44 passes have gone into the box. That's 14.7 per game. So we've really got to be careful for this. Shots against, they're having 12 shots against per game. And that's a shot total of 36 over the last 3 matches. And here we've got shot locations over the last 3 games for Spurs. That's 15.3, which is very high. And that's a total of 46 over the last 3 games. So, Justin, have you got anything to add on those?
Not really. I just think they overcommit. And I think their confidence at home is high. I mean, they've got a massively great home record. I think it's 9 points from 4 games, which is okay. It's pretty decent. But, we've got 10 points from 4 away games, unbeaten away, 3 wins and a draw. And I think our confidence levels are pretty high, you know. And I think we go into it. I think a lot of players are going to be resting in the cup game, so I think we go into it with, you know, a pretty fit squad. And I think after sort of dropping a couple of points last weekend, I think they'll be wanting to put this right. And I think playing against one of the better sides, without being a really top side, is going to do us good, because they're not going to sit back and sort of they're not going to sit back, are they? They're going to have a go, aren't they? And I think sometimes that really helps us.
Yeah, right. Let's go to some of the images now, and it'll show what they do, what areas of the pitch we've really got to avoid. So here we've got the game against Crystal Palace, and what we can see is that we've got Udogie breaking forward, coming more of an inside position and inverting past Mickey. Is it Mickey Moore? Is that his name? Mickey Moore?
Mikey Moore, yeah.
Mikey Moore.
Mikey Moore.
Mickey Moore.
He played well, he looks a player.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's doing well in the Europa League as well. So here is another instance of something we really need to avoid. Cannot lose the ball. Can't allow Spurs to get into these areas where there's green grass in front of them. Whenever I think of Spurs, I think there's a better image for me to show you. Yeah, here, perfect. This has to be avoided, right? Because this is prime Spurs wanting to pick up the ball out wide, 1v1, running into that area through there, or cutting onto the left foot, getting those shots in. They heavily commit players forward as well. So we've really got to make sure, which I think we will anyway, and we do defend this pretty well, is with our fullback and the midfielder in front of the fullback. We normally do double up really well, but that's something that we need to avoid. Something else that we massively need to avoid is to not have our two central midfielders in this position here. So Spurs have completely bypassed the West Ham midfield here now, and they've got a 4-on-4. Again, more areas where Spurs are deadly, out wide in these areas, with someone like Maddison able to just get his head up, who wants it, sliding those little through balls in, finding those balls out wide. So we've got to make sure that we're fully tracking runners, we don't lose the ball, and that when they are breaking on us, that we make sure that we do track and follow all of our runners. Again, we've got another one here now. Brennan Johnson picking up the ball. It's a 1v1. We can't allow this much space, because this is something where Spurs will pose problems. We've got another one against Brighton. It's gone out wide, posing big problems. So, yeah, I've reiterated that as something that massively needs to be avoided. I think we've got one here in a second. Here. So we've got this one here now, somewhere that I think you can sort of play through Spurs a little bit, and I think ball carriers are vitally important. When I watched the game against Brighton and I saw Matoma posing so many problems, sent for as much as Van der Ven's quick and he's lively and his recoveries are great, I do think you can disrupt this back line. So, yeah, so what I wanted to do is I just wanted to show you all, because we haven't really done this for a while, is just show you Villa within possession, because I think it's important to just note where we are and what we're trying to do. So against Bournemouth, it was pretty much our classic shape. So what we can see is that Luca Dean has gone forward on that left-hand side. So his role is to offer that width on that left-hand side. When Luca Dean goes forward, we move into that back three. So what Justin was talking about earlier, you've got Matty Cash, we've got Consat, and we've got Pau making up that back three. What we saw last year with Boubacar Kamara was him in this real screening role. So he would be a little bit where Onana is, but Onana's different to Kamara. Onana doesn't really screen it as much. We generally have been playing with more of a two in there, and the two work together more, rather than it being sort of like a double pivot that just looks like that. And it's like you've got the attacker and you've got the one that's at the tip. It's a little bit more together on the same line, but slightly just off. A bit like a pendulum. It just moves a little bit like that. That's how I'd probably describe our midfield. And then with that, we've got Ollie Watkins, we've got Rodgers, and then either side of that, we've got McGinn and we've got Ramsey as well. But what you can see is the makeup of that little bit of a box midfield in there as well. So that box midfield gets made up of the wide player, the player that's off the striker, and then you've got the two in there as well. So I really wanted to just highlight our shape really and what we want to do. And I think when Villa have got possession like this, what I'm doing is when I'm watching Villa, I'm always looking where everybody is, because the first thing I would want to look for in this scenario is I'm looking, is there a player that's anywhere around here? So when I'm looking for that player that's anywhere around here, I'm thinking, can he be exploited there? Can he be exploited? And the fact that these players are a little bit deeper show to me that they're more worried about what we're doing. So I think those are some of the things that I look out for, really. Another thing, again, where I think we can hurt Spurs is in this situation right here. So we was able to do this against Bournemouth, but if you imagine this is going to be Van der Ven or Romero, those balls that can go over the top that can completely bypass the Spurs midfield. You know, we know Spurs don't really play too many long balls. The beauty of Villa is that we can do this. This is within our style. We can pass it round them, or we can go a little bit longer as well, which I think is a really good attribute for Villa as well. And then here's something that I really want to highlight and just show that I think is something that is underrated with Villa, but is something that we do so well, is that when we defend with that back six, and when we go into that back six shape, what you can see from this image here is that we've got four defenders which are really close together. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So those four players go narrow and compact. And then what happens is the players that play either side of Watkins and Rodgers, they tuck in and make that sort of wing back position. So we've got Philogene here, and then we've got Maatsen, who came on late on in that game, who will be working within that shape through there. And we make it really difficult. And, you know, some people will say, oh, you're just sitting back and defending. But I'm telling you now, there is an art to defending like this. And this is something that I think we'll probably do at the weekend, is that when Spurs have got possession, we will go into this shape a little bit, and we're really comfortable of defending in this way. So I think that is pretty... No, I've got two more. I've got two more, Justin. So another thing that I think Spurs have got a weakness at are cutbacks. And I know that Villa are big on cutbacks. We are big at sort of getting to the byline and cutting it back. So this was the goal that Kudus scored against Spurs. Another flaw that I think Spurs have got that can be massively exploited are their set pieces. Vicario is a bit of a flapper. He'll come out and flap something straight away, and then that's it. He's done then for the game. He's edgy. He's coming out for stuff. He's dropping stuff. So if we can get that first set piece right and make him thinking, oh, God, here we go again, I'm under pressure here now, and keep putting them set pieces on him, I think that'll pose them problems as well. And finally, that is me done. I've said everything I need to say. Justin, thoughts?
Yeah, I think they over-rely wide. I think we can hurt them down the middle. I think players like Rodgers, Watkins, Ramsey and McGinn, I genuinely think they're going to overcommit, and I think they'll try their best to sort of stay calm and composed and retain, possession. But I think their sort of ability to come out with the ball and hopefully play through our lines will be picked off by our double pivot, where they stick with a single pivot now. And I think centrally, Kulusevski will find himself in really attacking positions with Maddison. And I think we're going to exploit them through the middle.
Yeah. We spoke about it a little bit the other day, about some of our progressive actions that we get in, such as, you know, when we are breaking through and Ramsey's through on the left, or Barkley's driving forward, or Rodgers broke through. We have really got to make teams pay when we're doing that. I think I've got to reiterate that we have a lot of nearly moments, and I think we've got to really become very ruthless in those moments as well. And I think it will start on Sunday. So with all that said, at 34 minutes of pretty in-depth stuff, right? You know, we've done well to put this together. So with all that said, Justin, what's going to happen on Sunday? Are we going to be 8 points clear? Are we going to be 2 points in front? Or are we going to be net 5 points? Is it going to be a draw? What's going to happen?
My heart always says Villa are going to win. I always predict Villa wins. I think we can win the game. I think a narrow Villa win. I'm going to say I think Spurs are good enough to score, and we're not that great keeping clean sheets in the Premier League this season. So a 2-1 or a 3-2 Villa.
Yeah. I didn't really think of doing a score prediction, so I haven't really thought about it. But after hearing me and you chat for 35 minutes, I think it's all pointing to a Villa win. I think we've recorded this before the Carabao Cup game, and I kind of imagine what the team's going to be. And I imagine we rested a few, and I imagine that because it's such a big game, we're going to be really, really up for it, and we're going to know the importance of it. And this is like a different Villa now. It's not just a big game. It's one of those where you know when we were like not very good, and you'd sit on Super Sunday and you put the games on, and it'd be say 3rd v 4th, and you'd be like, wow, this is a big game. I'm watching. This is a big one because, you play, it's two teams that are going to be right up there. This is one of them games, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
it's a game we're going to be judged on, I think. The outside of Spurs and Villa fans, the watching Premier League public are going to judge us on this. And a lot of people will be tipping Villa to win this game, because we're such a good side. So I think to keep the momentum of the season going, I do think we're a better side than Spurs. So I just think we're going to nick it. I do, yeah. I think we'll have enough to nick it.
Yeah, I think scores popped in my head. So I've got to say, I've gone 3-1 Villa. I've gone 3-1 Villa in my head. I don't know why. Yeah. I think it's close, but I think what happens, the thought that came in my head was we 2-1 up, Spurs are pushing. And it's a bit like that goal we scored against. It's a bit like that goal we scored against Arsenal last year. No, against Arsenal.
Yeah. Oh, on the break.
Yeah. And then the Tottenham Hotspur stadium clears out, and then we bring Matty Cash on in 90 plus 5.
Just to annoy him.
Yeah, that's what happens. Right. So, we said we were going to do the Villa lineup, but I think. I agree with what you said earlier about Konsa being in. I think with their threat, Konsa's right back, Carlos Pau, Digne, Onana, Tielemans,
McGinn, Rodgers,
Ramsey, Watkins.
Rodgers, Ramsey,
Watkins. There we go.
Yeah.
Right. We got it in there. Right then. Cheers, everyone. If you've got this far, make sure you subscribe, smash the likes, comment your thoughts. Up the Villa.
Up the Villa.